Welcome back, everybody, to Pittman and Friends Podcast. I'm here today with my friend Vincent Moulden, the director of the Arundel County Office of Community Engagement and Constituent Services. And if you're a regular, you might know I already interviewed Vincent. But this is different. This is office hours. I get interviewed by Vincent. So take it away, Vincent Moulden.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very happy to do it differently this time for office hours because last time, like you said, you got to interview me, but we're switching it up. Do you like it that way better? Because I was thinking about it before I came down here, and I was thinking, you know what? I feel more relaxed being interviewed than doing the interview because you got to be on top of things and you know, timing and all of that when you're interviewing. The interviewer just gets to spew whatever pops into your head when you ask questions. No, I much prefer being the interviewer.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're both in the right place then.
Yeah, I started doing this on the side for fun, and I've come to enjoy it. So,
Good.
Let's see how we play in this one if we're in our natural preferred roles. But, yeah, when I heard that we were going to be focusing on the budget for this one, I said I would love to represent the people because, you know, the constituent services. Yeah, we the people.
Okay, because, yes, that is your job. And when we have our CECS meetings, you're basically bringing to us what people said.
What the concerns are.
Yeah. Okay. That works.
So for the months of January and February, we heard all the feedback from the residents during our budget town halls and through emails and even on social media, we heard even more feedback. So these questions were generated from that feedback.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to
early in the budget process then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So throughout the entire process where we solicited feedback from the residents, CCS helps to capture that, pull it together, and make sure that they're at the table when you're making your decisions.
Right.
And so the questions I'm asking today will be based on that. So on May 1st, in the County Council chambers, you opened your budget address by saying that budgets are a statement of values and strategy, something we heard you say a lot. This is also your final budget as county executive. When you look at this proposal, what do you believe it says about the values of your administration?
Well, I would say it's nothing new compared to the last 7. I will also say that I'm always a little bit terrified going into budget because I worry about revenues and about whether we're going to be able to meet the needs of the people of the county and deliver what I think needs to be delivered. I'll also say that this budget and all of them reflect a philosophy that government actually can be a force for good and improve people's lives, but that we have to prove it to people. You know, there's a lot of distrust in government. And in fact, there are elected leaders around the country, and there have been in this county, whose focus at budget time is to cut as much as possible to cut taxes. That is the goal. And a belief that these bureaucracies in government and all these programs, it's just too much. Just let us be on our own. Libertarians are the ultimate in that. Just no government, please. And I'm a country boy from South County, and we got a little bit of that. You know, I got a little bit of that in me. It's like, come on, man, do we need more government for? Maybe we need less in some areas. But so it's not about growing government. It is about investing in the things that we know will have an impact, a return on investment. And I say that over and over again in the budget. The ROI has to be there. And so that's why we keep track of data. That's why the school board in particular is very good about keeping track of data, and we talk about that. So it's the same old things, though. You know, it's education, it's health and human services, it's public safety, and it is responding to the moment we're in, which is a moment where the federal government is saying the president has said we can't be funding things like child care and social services. What we need to do is spend our money fighting wars. And so that has been the direction, and we have to be responsive to that.
Absolutely. I heard you touch on a little bit trust in government, and understand that was a Pittman pillar, right? Restoring trust in government.
Yeah, we had those pillars at the beginning, didn't we?
At the beginning. You had to have at least 2 of them to start any initiative. That was the rule. But I also heard you talk about when you first came into government, you didn't have a lot of trust for government. How has that evolved for you as county executive?
Good point. Coming from the outside. Yeah. And been a bit of a rebel through much of my life and career, and maybe I think I still am. But just because I didn't trust government doesn't mean I didn't want to trust government. I wanted to believe that government was really in it for all the right reasons. The government was the institutions, and there are multiple institutions within government the way I see it. You can think of them as departments or whatever you want, but that if they're working well, then people trust them, just like in all relationships with people. And so, yeah, to me, somebody asked me what would be, the definition of success for me before I was even county executive, and I thought really hard about it. And, my answer was impacting the attitude of the people in such a way that they trusted government more, that they actually believed we were doing good things and they were willing to invest in us.
Absolutely. And I love to think of CCS as the tip of the spear for that initiative, right? Because we're out in the community.
Communicating. Yeah. And I'll say that you can't build the trust. First of all, to build trust, I learned this training horses. Okay. You have to meet people or horses where they are, right? Yes. Absolutely. You can't just jump on a horse's back who's never been ridden and kick them and say, go. They're not going to trust you. They're going to throw you in the dirt and stomp on you.
For sure.
And same with people. You've got to meet them where they are, and you've got to understand where they're coming from in order to have any kind of a connection that then you can move forward. But yeah, I'm divulging all my political strategies here. So let's get back to governing.
Well, and people may not believe this, but you actually don't make as many horse analogies as people might think.
Yeah.
Right?
I was told not to by my first campaign manager.
Really?
By Pete Barron way back in the day.
Yeah.
He said, people don't want to be compared to horses. Come on.
Stay away from horses.
I learned a lot from horses. They're herd animals too,
Absolutely. A house in good order.
Okay.
That's the theme for this year's budget, right? What does it mean to leave a house in good order for the next administration?
Yeah, I thought of that, and I came up with that as a concept because I had been frustrated at – a lot of people say that part of the reason government is often dysfunctional is that the politicians think short-term and not long-term, that – unlike a business person who plans, or a person managing family finance, you think about what you're going to leave for the next generation. You think long term, and so when you invest in that business, you are thinking about not just what's going to happen next year or even in 5 years, but maybe 10 and 20 years. And we don't do that because we're not going to be in office that long. I'm not going to be in office. There's term limits here, and we're worried about the next election. So we have to make it look good now, look good, or in a year or 2 or 3. And so often there are budget gimmicks that one can play to cover things up and to make things look better than they are. Like overspending, there's a spending affordability formula for the capital improvements program, and most county executives, and certainly the one before me, overspent in the last year when there was an election coming up to make it look like you were getting a lot done. And we have not done that. We have not ever done that, actually. We have not exceeded affordability on the capital budget. And we have a really strong budget team led by Chris Trumbauer, who is fiscally very disciplined and disciplines me if I get out of line. And so I'm reminded. But we're given options. There are ways to spend money that just by making projections different, projecting future revenues differently. If you're really optimistic and you say we're going to have a ton of revenues coming, then you start spending money, in recurring expenses to go along with it. But if you budget conservatively and you project conservatively, then you don't overspend, and it puts you in a better position for the future. So that's, to me, what leaving a house in good order in a budget is. I also think that government is something that has to be nurtured, and that leaving it in better condition than you found it is the goal. So
does it mean something beyond financially to you?
It sort of does, yes. And when you say a house in good order, you really mean the whole institution, the whole place. And for me, even though it's not part of the budget, knowing that county employees are really excellent at their jobs and have been trained well and have achieved success, or that infrastructure has been built so that, for instance, our police department has a real-time information center and good equipment and good cars, and our fire department have apparatus that are up-to-date and modern, and our buildings are not falling apart, which means that in future budgets, you're not going to have to be spending your time on that. You can be making progress.
Right. Yeah. Got it. All right. Sometimes I feel as though our departments are not as enthusiastic about our level of community engagement
Okay.
that we would prefer. And even the level of budget town halls that we do for each one of these budgets, we do 8 of them now. And by charter, you're only required to do 2. That's correct, right?
Right. Yep.
Do you think that level of engagement and the engagement that you have kind of required as part of the process for government in your administration, do you think that level of engagement is required to do good governing?
You can get away without doing it for a while, but I think it catches up with you. And if you want to build trust in government, you have to engage because you have to meet people. And I would say that, yeah, if you work in the bureaucracy, in a department, it is tiring to do town halls and hear from residents. I've written about this in my weekly letter, actually, I think, who don't know your job, telling you how to do it. Or people coming to budget town halls and demanding things as though it's a crisis and the sky is going to fall if it doesn't happen, that maybe aren't that critical, or that the money's not there to do, or that maybe it can be done, over a 5 or 10 year period. So the sense of urgency people bring can be uncomfortable. Definitely uncomfortable for me, sitting in the front of that room and having people pointing their finger at me and saying, if the next person who dies in a fire, it's on you because you have not hired enough firefighters, or you have not funded the fire department, or you can say that about police, you can say it about education, you can say it about a lot of things. It's all you. And so it makes me uncomfortable, and it makes department heads uncomfortable when people say, in really sometimes accusatory terms, that something hasn't been done and it should have been done. But then that's what meeting them where they is. And I will tell you that the department heads are not required to come to our budget town halls, but a lot of them show up, especially Public Works, literally texting their staff. Karen Henry, often they're texting her staff about, with the pothole or the sidewalk or whatever it is, getting information. Rec and Parks is often there. A lot of our health, all of our forward-facing, community-based, community-facing departments are there. And it's not because they have to be. It's because they want to. I think so. I don't think that they completely dislike it. I think that it's hard work. And it pays off. Maybe it pays off more for the elected officials because then they get the support. But I know Rec and Parks, when they started doing even more community engagement than they were doing before on projects and doing it earlier, it was a lot, and they were getting screamed and yelled at. But I think you ask them now, and they're really proud of it. And they feel like it does make the process a bit easier down the road when you've already been talking to people.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that Recs and Parks is the example for that. Yeah, absolutely. You talked about it, public safety. That was a huge theme for this year's budget town halls. How do you respond to that demand of wanting more officers, wanting more firefighters, and what does it take in order to get that demand met?
So public safety agencies are, police and fire in particular, very expensive to run and very important and necessary and very popular politically in this county. Both police and fire people want government investment in those things. What's a little different there, and this is some people think it's wrong to allow the labor unions, the public employee unions, to be testifying at the public town halls. They were designed for the residents to speak about their priorities. And when it's the county employees speaking about their priorities, some people say it's inappropriate. I thought about whether or not to change things so that they did not do that. And I thought, I think it's positive for the residents to come to a meeting and hear not just from their neighbors. Neighbors go first. If you live in the community, you go first. So you can leave if you want at the end of it. But also from the cops and the firefighters and the public servants and the librarians and the teachers and all. Because they're there not just to talk to me. They get a chance to talk to me anyway. In fact, they get to negotiate their contracts with our administration. But they're there to talk to the neighbors and to build support. I wrote a letter recently to the Salisbury City Council because they had a resolution to change their charter to remove the right to collective bargaining for all unions in the city. And it was a mayor who had come in and said, to save money, we're going to do that.
Wow.
So I pointed out that you don't actually save money by people taking people's rights away. But one of the things you do is you take away one of the greatest advocates for the departments, that the labor unions are advocating for government to be funded adequately so that they can have a living wage and all those things. So in the long run, I think it's good and it's healthy, but it can be painful to hear sometimes.
Absolutely.
What they say.
Yeah. Well, one request you said yes to was the food bank. It was one of the clearest asks we heard.
Hey, I said yes to I didn't actually say it in the meetings, but I said yes to the police and fire too by putting a bunch of positions in I put in 21 new firefighters, which is a huge number. We'd already increased by 95 since we came in.
Yes.
And a little birdie is telling me that the negotiations suggest that there might be 5 more added to that. So that'd be 26.
Okay.
And then on the police side, we've increased the actual sworn number, by I think it's 70 or 80. I think it was just under 700 when I came in, and we're at 780 now. So no, not above where we want to be, but
progress.
It is progress, and you can't. We have vacancies on the police side. It's really harder to hire police officers these days than it is firefighters and a lot of other positions. And so rather than creating a bunch of new positions, you do things like we did in last year's budget, which is make our police the highest paid in the state, or like we did this year, which is to make them safer and more effective by having the real-time information center funded 24/7.
Yeah.
And that was, took us 6 positions in that, 9 total new positions. So we did say yes.
Yes. My apologies.
At least a partial yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that real-time information center is fantastic. It's one of the coolest things I've probably seen in government, and they took us on tour even before you. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you that.
Yeah.
But again, one of the things...
Well, it's crazy not to use the technology that we all have on our phones, right?
Yeah,
like cameras and text messages and all these things. And then to be able to communicate to officers who are on the scene whose lives are at risk.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, the bad guy's over there. Or, whatever information they need to be able to make the community safer.
Yeah, they demonstrated to us an actual case that they used, right? And we were able to follow the suspect from where the incident happened all the way through to the arrest. And the camera footage you were able to follow, right? It was amazing. So yes, absolutely. But again, try this again.
Okay, I know we're going off topic left, right, and center, but we're 18 minutes in. We got 30. Okay.
Okay, good. One of the things you said yes to was the food bank request for $2 million, right? What made you say yes to that?
I knew we were going to say yes to that, like from day one. And I've often said that when times get tough, we got to make sure people are fed, and we also should make sure that they have houses or roofs over their heads, which we've not been successful at, but trying to make progress at that. But even if some people say, well, are they really hungry? I mean, come on, can't they find food somewhere? Even if they're not about to die of hunger, right? It's not a famine situation necessarily. If you can provide food to people in a time where they can't pay their rent, they can't pay health insurance, they can't pay for a lot of things because the math just doesn't work every month, then you're making it possible for them to pay for other things. So it's like you could put cash in people's pockets, but there's ways to get the food at reduced rates and some of it donated, and then get it into people's homes so that they can eat it, obviously, and avoid paying the high cost of food at the grocery store, then you're really making an impact. So it's a very wise investment that we had done a $1.5 million last year, and then we did a little bit more during the year from our emergency federal disaster preparedness and recovery funds when they remember the whole SNAP cuts and the government shut down and all the things that were increasing the lines at our food distribution system. So we put some more in. But then they asked us to go from 1.5 to 2 million, and it seemed like a very reasonable request that we could afford to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of our more effective advocates, right? The food bank.
Well, yeah, they show up at all the budget town halls, and both board members and staff and actually some of the pantries show up as well, so they distribute to the pantries that then distribute directly to people. So, yeah, the whole network was really strengthened during COVID and put online so people could, find out where the closest pantry was. And And it's unfortunate that we need to do it, but I'm really, when people put their heart and soul into doing that work, the last thing you want to do is say, no, we're not going to give you the money to buy the food to distribute.
Yeah. And to do the work. This kind of leads me to the next question, because obviously there's a lot of vulnerable folks in our county, and with the federal government not being the partner that they used to be, the focus of the last year's budget was protecting our people. And so has that work continued through this budget?
Well, that was the theme, and we always have a theme for the budget.
Right.
House in Good Order is this one. And when we said that last year, it was the beginning of the new administration that was threatening major impacts and cuts. We set aside, we didn't spend $10 million and had it set aside for federal disaster preparedness and recovery. We did a few other things, like we knew that ICE was going to be coming after immigrant families, and there would be folks left without their breadwinner. And we needed to create a system to respond to that with social services, and also make sure people had access where we could to legal assistance when they were going for their hearings for deportation, to the extent they actually had hearings, which fewer and fewer do. But so we've continued that work. Fortunately, bless the lawyers. I've never been a big fan of lawyers. My dad was a lawyer, and I loved my dad, but it's like, come on, man, you guys, we got enough lawyers, don't we? They just complicate life, right? And running a nonprofit, the lawyers were always telling us what we could and couldn't do. Yeah. Well, now I kneel down and praise those lawyers, because they're the ones who are preventing some of the worst things from happening to local government and to local people with lawsuits. And so a lot of those lawsuits are winning. Most of them are winning. And so a lot of the cuts, the original Doge cuts, the Elon Musk stuff, they didn't get away with. So we have had major pain, major losses of employment for people. So we didn't use that whole $10 million. So we've got $5 million this year that's set aside. We know, however, that deportations are likely to increase because ICE has been hiring. They've been hiring fast, and their budget is increased, tenfold or something like that. And so we have to be prepared for more ICE activity in our communities. So we've increased the fund for the Family Assistance Network that was created through faith organizations and just people who want to help their neighbors. So we grew that. And then the other was that, they call it the big, beautiful bill that basically is going to, after the election in November, is going to kick in, where the new requirements to stay on Medicaid and get on Medicaid are going to kick in, and a lot of people are going to get thrown off. But in order to stay on, you have to jump through all these bureaucratic hoops. It's basically trying to kill the program through paperwork burden and regulation. And so we've got new positions in the Department of Health to help people navigate staying on their health insurance. And then we've got new positions for the REACH program, which is folks who have lost their health insurance, to help them with low cost and volunteer medical care. So that's the world we live in, and we're continuing the work.
Absolutely. Important work. So education probably was one of the most emotional things that came out during the town halls, right? We heard from teachers, special educators, social school workers, TSAs, speech language pathologists, parents, and students. Many in the system seem stretched, right? What stayed with you through those testimonies?
I think it's both the testimony, and then I had a meeting that I talked about in my budget speech with the Teachers Union, TAC. But I thought that they were in that meeting going to talk mostly about the cost of living adjustment. And, we did that consistent with other county employees. Right. Ended up at 2.25%. Of course, they wanted 3%. We weren't able to pull that off, and 2.25%. But they ended up talking mostly about what it's like having kids with special needs, and how many more kids have special needs than have in the past, and teachers being bitten and chairs thrown at them, and real chaos, and that therefore they need more assistance, and therefore they need more special ed teachers. And that was one where the initial draft of the budget that we were able to put together with the revenues that we had, it didn't include any of those positions. And I thought back on those stories that those teachers told, and said to the budget office, we're going to have to go above the tax cap, which is something that was implemented by voters like 20-some years ago, and it's not good policy. Democrat and Republican county executives have told me it prevents you from making decisions based on what the cost of actual government, and you should trust the local leaders at the time to make these decisions about taxes and spending. Right. But it limits what you can tax, and it actually was pushing our tax rate down. So we went through the tax cap. We're still having a tax reduction on our property taxes. We're talking about property tax here. So it is going down a little bit, but it was going to go down even further, and we went through the cap to fund those new positions.
You did make a historic investment in education this year. Why did you decide to make that investment in the school system?
Well, yeah, you can put that question two ways. One is, why didn't you do more? And one is, why did you do so much? I think folks were pleased for the most part. I know because back in the last administration, the annual increases were, maybe in the teens, like $13, $14 million over the previous year. We bumped things up, and our biggest increase to date was $50 million last year over the year before that. We did $72 million this year over last year. So the increase grew. And part of that was making up for loss of state funding. And the loss of state funding had to do with formulas. It wasn't decisions that the General Assembly made. It was formulas that existed based on enrollment and things. But we didn't want to be in a position like a lot of other districts laying off teachers because that just increases class sizes and adds to the stress. So no layoffs, new special ed teachers, got a COLA that was consistent with what the rest of the 2.25 could have been higher for everybody. I would have liked, but that's what we were able to do. And put us at $72 million over last year, which it's a lot of money. Yeah,
absolutely. So capital projects are where residents often feel whether their community is being prioritized. We heard about field houses and schools and senior centers and libraries and sidewalks and animal services and trails, water access, historic preservation. How do you decide what moves forward? How do you make those decisions?
So fortunately, our county charter created some community engagement. They created a planning advisory board. A lot of the budget requests come out of processes that involve the community, like Rec and Parks has the LPPRP, Land Preservation, Parks and Recreation. They're doing it now. You get citizen input on what's needed. And a lot of the departments have things like that. Public Works has got they review roads with a formula that tells them the condition of the roads, and then they prioritize those. So by the time it gets to me, it's gone through the Planning Advisory Board. The Budget Office has figured out what's affordable. They've cut out a lot of things. They ask me when they're doing the cutting part, what I think, and I let them know what I think. But towards the end, a few things get sprinkled in there, like the kids who testified at the budget town halls over and over again on the Chesapeake and the Arundel field houses. They moved that baby up.
Yeah.
They got heard, right? So that got put in there. So every once in a while, you get something that gets put in that wasn't part of a plan and didn't necessarily get studied. It's just the right thing to do in that moment. And then sometimes you have things like the West County Swim Center that, the original location that had been identified got rejected basically by community opposition. And then moving it to another location and time and increased costs, that thing got so expensive we can't afford to do it right now. So that got kind of slow walked. It's still in. We now do have a site that the county has purchased where it can be, but we haven't figured out a way to pay for it yet, and the next administration is going to have to make the decisions about that. Right. So sometimes it's money and availability, and if something's too expensive, you can't move forward until you have all the money, so you wait. And sometimes it's community engagement. Sometimes it's studies that say we have to do it. This building's going to fall down, or we need this new service. So, and there is an analysis that's done geographically.
Okay.
There's an equity analysis to make sure that historically underserved communities do have the same kinds of facilities that wealthier communities have. And so that might affect our park spending. It certainly can affect our education capital budget as well. But lots and lots of factors go into it. But advocacy is definitely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel as though through all the budget town halls and what you've heard from residents, has that changed the way you governed at all?
Changed the way I governed? Well, I guess
Like, we know it's impacted policy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had a philosophy coming in as a former community organizer, a decade of knocking on doors, building neighborhood groups, that I was somebody who truly believed, and I think I believe this even more than I did before I was county executive, that the real power is with the people. Mm-hmm. They don't always use it, but it is the power. I mean, you really can change history quickly with enough people mobilized. I mean, look at Hungary in their election. I mean, look at our country's history. I mean, things change in like little 1 and 2 year periods because people mobilize. And there are a lot of historians who look at our history through the mechanism of community engagement or uprisings or whatever you want to call it. So, and it happens at the micro level in communities and neighborhoods. And so I knew that in order to govern well, we would have to have strong engagement from communities. Yeah. And in order to win the hard stuff, like forest conservation, there wasn't a lot of interest on the council when that first came up. And there was polling that was done. That showed the overwhelmingly bipartisan support for it. And there was advocacy by a lot of organizations who showed up at council meetings. And at the end of the day, that was a 7-0 vote. It did get watered down because you had the real estate developers out there doing their lobby thing and everything. So it wasn't quite as what we had tried to do, but it's a big improvement. And I've recently looked at our forest loss numbers, and we were losing like 200 and some acres a year, and now it's it's like under 20 acres a year.
Yeah. Community organizer turned county executive.
Yeah, wow. but I believe it at my core. Yeah. That you roll your eyes at all the political shenanigans, especially during an election season like we're in right now, and this. I can say this because I'm living, stupid stuff that gets done, right? Just to win an election. It's like, oh, well, I want that group and I want that group and without looking at the big picture. But that's democracy and it can be that way. But it works when enough people speak up because I think there's a lot of common sense in the public. Yeah. But if only a small groups of the public, like the people with the most money or the corporations that have lobbyists, if they're the only ones engaging, then they're the only ones benefiting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in your weekly letter, right before you did your budget address, and for the record, I don't know if this has been said on your podcast, you write your own weekly letters. People always ask me that question.
I do share them, and there's this funny process where I know what you guys are going to be uncomfortable with, and sometimes I put it in there anyway,
just to make a squirm,
just to torture you. Yeah. And then at the end, I say, okay, I'll change that. But yeah, it goes through a sort of don't upset too many people prism,
a review process, a review.
But no, and then even the suggestions, I generally like. Okay, tell me what you think I should change, and I'll write that in my words as opposed to letting people just change the rhythm and change the tone and
he writes them himself.
I love to write and what am I going to do when I'm done with all this? I'm going to write a tell-all book. So watch what you say. Okay.
I just want to say for the record because people thought I wrote them at some point. I don't want credit for these. It's all County Executive Pittman.
You have your own letter and we often compete about who gets the most clicks.
The best open rate. But in your weekly letter before your budget address, you said that next year you'll be back on the resident side as an engaged resident demanding a better future. After all these budget town halls, how do you think you'll advocate for residents having been county executive?
Wow. I don't think that – so I don't want to be like the angry old man showing all the budget town halls, beating his fist.
I did it like this.
Yeah. I've been told that that's what I'm going to be. And I might do a little of that. But I love to write, and I feel like I express myself in writing it better than any other way. And I love to organize. So if I can do anything to facilitate the mobilization of groups of people as a voice, that's where I see myself being comfortable.
Okay. All right, final question. What advice would you give residents who want to be effective advocates in the next administration? With the new county executive, what advice would you give them?
Same advice I would give to the county executive. The meet people where they are thing applies both ways. So you've got a new leader and you want them to move in your direction. Try to at least, in a civil way, obviously, connect. and understand where they're coming from. And they will work more closely and be more responsive to those who they see as basically friends than enemies, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely a place for militant mobilization and marching and protesting and screaming and yelling and speaking your truth. But there's also a place for, and I don't mean kiss their butt.
Right.
I mean just in the advocacy, have some grace and try to understand where they're coming from. Absolutely. And don't always assume the worst.
Yeah. Good advice.
We're not that bad.
Well, this has been fun.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't just stick with written questions and you had a conversation. Vincent hasn't actually been looking down. He's been looking straight at me, looking for the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is fun. And we went over, but it's important, I think, for people to understand, and this is something with my weekly letters too, that I really feel like people want to and should want to know what it's like on the inside. And so the more people, I'm trying to help people meet me where I am in making decisions. That's what you're trying to do too. Meet all of us where we are and figure out how to get to a good place.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just really quickly, that was the intention with the Community Association Summit, right? And we had you come out and teach an entire session on community organizing.
You're always pitching your work at CES. Yes.
We do great work there.
You do. You have a great team. Yep.
So we'll end on that note.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this and making it easy to talk about this stuff in a fun way.
Absolutely.
And you get the last word because I want your endorsement for the podcast.
All right, absolutely. Okay? You're listening to the Pittman and Friends Podcast. If you like what you heard, please hit the subscribe button, share with a friend, and join us for the next episode.
All right. Thanks.
All right.